Hey guys, it's Layla from Ignite, and in this video I'm going to take you through a really overlooked but absolutely crucial aspect of Virginia Woolf's form in Mrs. Dalloway. If you're a student that is doing Module A in the HSC, this analysis is explicitly useful for the textual conversations between Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway and Stephen Daldry's The Hours. But if you're not studying the HSC and you're purely interested in form in this text, stay tuned because there is some useful content for you. Just as a foregrounding point, I want you guys to remember that when we're looking at the form of a text, we're considering its macro construction. We're asking ourselves what aspects of this text define it as its text type. In this case, Mrs. Dalloway is a novel, and a key aspect of a novel's form is characterization. It seems somewhat arbitrary, but if we don't characterize a text, there is no way of actually gaining insight to these characters, feeling their emotions and how they experience the turbulence of the post-war world in which they are placed. But more importantly, while Virginia Woolf does work to characterize all of her central protagonists, the extent of the characterization does also connect their defining, interconnected experiences of loss, of existential angst, and of a desire for death within this post-war world. So the point that I guess I'm making here is firstly, consider the form in the text that you're studying. Secondly, if you're doing Mrs. Dalloway, it's important that you consider characterization. Don't overlook it. If characters weren't characterized, you wouldn't empathize with their plight, you wouldn't understand their nuances, nor would you be able to connect the, coherent experiences of all of these distinguished people within their context. So that's the main point we're taking on from here. How are particular protagonists in this text characterized? How does this contribute to the form? And of course, how does this allow us to empathize with the broader values and ideas that Virginia Woolf is conveying? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you an example of characterization in the text, and then I'm going to show you how I would actually put my analysis of form into a body paragraph to show you the application of this actual skill. All right, so here's my quote. I think it is from page 15 in the text, I'm pretty sure, and it's a quote which is characterizing Septimus Warren Smith. I've chosen him because if you've watched our videos on World War I in terms of the context of Virginia Woolf, it's a prime example about how war experience and the traumatized masculinity manifests in the form of Septimus, right? There's a nice relationship between form here, characterization, and the contextual paradigms of the time. So let's have a read of the quote. Septimus Warren Smith, aged about 30, pale-faced, bleak-nosed, wearing brown shoes and a shabby overcoat. With hazel eyes, the world has raised its whip. Where will it descend? Okay, so if we look at the first few clauses, the syntax here is actually quite long and elongated, and it kind of drags through this imagery, which shows Septimus as a man who is weighed down by the world at the time. He's drawn out, he's approaching the middle age. He is a little bit younger than Mrs. Dalloway herself, 10 years or so younger, but we see in his appearance this effeminate status of a man who has been traumatized by war. As we move beyond the ellipsis, by the way, the ellipsis being the bit I've taken out of this quote, and we look at how Virginia Woolf has then moved us beyond his appearance into his mindset, we get a sense of the insecurities of this character. And this is what is so special about the way that Virginia Woolf does her characterization. She starts off with a visual aspect. She's accumulated multiple images to give you a physical sense of how Septimus appears. But then she goes beyond that. The omniscient narrator dips in and it focalizes the mindset of the characters, right? A reflection of psychoanalysis as a contextual feature, right? Looking into the subconscious. And she shows us what these characters are thinking. And that thought process is absolutely crucial because without moving into their insights, we can't acknowledge the congruence in the insecurities between Septimus and Mrs. Dalloway. So when we look at the last part of the quote here, the world has raised its whip. So he's personifying the world as almost this evil creature that raises a harmful kind of instrument. And he questions, where will it descend? Because Septimus is so fearful about the inevitable mortality which constitutes and characterizes the modern world. We know that he's a character plagued by death. In fact, this early moment of characterization connects his character to that, insecurity and yet strange desire to be killed because he can't deal with the post-war traumas in which he's been placed. So what I've done here is I've tried to highlight for you the two things that characterization functions to do in this quote. On one hand, the imagery shows us the physical appearance, while what I've marked in red dips into the mindset of the character, so we not only get a sense of what they look like, but we can empathize with the intricacies of their mind. So, taking into account all of these elements, let me show you how you would actually take that formal analysis and put it into a body paragraph. Okay, so often Woolf's omniscient narration focalizes the perspectives of Septimus and Mrs. Dalloway in order to elucidate the congruency of their post-war experience. So before launching into the characterization, I've said it's our omniscient narrator, another aspect of the text form, which actually frames this characterization. The narrator characterizes, there's my explicit labeling of the formal aspect, characterizes Septimus as aged, about 30, pale-faced and bleak-nosed. The accumulated details. Notice how now I've used a technique to show you how the characterization has actually been formed. There's a close relationship between technique and formal aspect, building depth to his typically worn war veteran appearance. That's the effect of what that technique has done within that aspect of form, which is the characterization. Going further, the narrator moves into the mind and insecurity of Septimus. So we're saying it doesn't stop there. We don't just know what he looks like. We're moving now into the effect of going into his mind. Moves into the mind and the insecurity of Septimus, evoking his inner fears of where the symbolic whip of the world will descend, foregrounding Septimus's inevitable death. So what we're saying here is I've started off with the image. I've said here is his physical appearance. Then I've moved into the introspective nature of his mind and linked that to Septimus's character on a broader scale, which is his fear of death. I hope you guys did enjoy that aspect of form. Think about it. It's a novel. Characterization is key. It seems like a formal aspect you could easily overlook, but don't, because as you can see, characterization isn't only about the appearance and building the visual aspect of a text. It moves us into their mindset and gives us a greater sense of their insecurities. And if you compare the characterization of Septimus to Mrs. Dalloway herself, you see that congruency between their fears, their insecurities, and their existential angst. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please do like and subscribe to our content. Feel free to comment. I'll get back to all of your concerns. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching once again. If you are enjoying our content, and we hope you are, please do like and subscribe to our channel, and of course, share with your friends.
That's right guys, thanks for watching, but please do make sure you check out our very special resources. They're quite unique. We've made a whole bunch of state rank practical guides for all your English texts out there. So check out the link now at ignitehsc.com.au. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video.